Hey everyone, this is Angel from Apex Gaming with a brand new video for Elden Ring. Fellow potato gamers of the world, it is time to unite and defeat Malenia, Blade of Miquella, and this is an optional boss fight that you can find at the very bottom of Miquella's Haligtree, and let me tell you, this fight is no joke. Now, I know a legendary player has appeared recently by the name of Let Me Solo Her. This video isn't by any means a guide to becoming this guy. It is just an easy strategy to beat Malenia, because sometimes, my dear friends, accepting you'll never be a gaming god is a first step to make things work with your actual potato abilities. So, with that said, let's do some preparations before beginning this fight. Timestamps are in the description of the video on YouTube player as well, in case you need to skip to any section of the video. First of all, leveling up. This is a great moment to grind some levels so you don't suffer more than you have to. How many levels? Well, I defeated this lady being level 140, but I'm too dumb, and I'm pretty sure most of you will do better on a lower level. But if you really feel like you're getting destroyed, the right side of the church area just before you go down the elevator is perfect for you to level up. There are a lot of those box soldiers that can keep around 6,000 runes each, so with a good round on this cemetery, you can easily make 100k runes and level up in just a couple of minutes. For the gear, Malenia is a very annoying lady, because most of the attacks from her unnecessarily large katana can destroy you in a matter of seconds. This weapon is a slash and pierce katana, so if you're getting grated like a piece of cheese, equip a better armor set and a solid shield that works against that kind of weapon. She will heal every time her blade hits you, no matter if you're blocking or she lands a direct hit. So if you're too dumb like me and most of the time block her attacks, be sure to level up your endurance to increase your stamina bar, or double check your gear selection to have a better poise. But don't make the mistake that I did and go all the way with some of the heavier sets, because you will also need to move and evade a lot, especially during the second phase. So test different gear sets and see what works best for you to avoid getting one-tapped. Most of her attacks can be avoided if you time your dodges correctly. So I leave a link in the description and YouTube comments to Let Me Solo Her's video so you can check him out and maybe learn a dodge or two. Oh, and by the way, don't focus on immunity stats for this fight, because the rod is not such a big deal here, and I'll explain that later. Instead, boost your stats with some strength, dexterity, or defensive talismans like the Dragon Crest Grey Shield Talisman that can be found on the roof of the church before the site of grace for this fight. If we're going to make this fight an easy one, we need to summon a spirit, and after multiple tests, the best option by far was a Mimic Tier Spirit Ash. You can find this one inside the Knight's Sacred Grounds on this point right here, behind a mist door that needs 2 stone sword keys. Defeat the guy inside, open the chest, and you've got a Mimic Tier. Then, do some spirit tuning with Roderica to level it up as much as you can, and you'll have a great companion to ease the burden of this fight. And by the way, while you're in that place where you found the Mimic Tier Ash, don't forget to grab the black Whetblade from that same building. This is going to be fundamental for our strategy up ahead. The final thing we need to look for this strategy to work as smoothly as possible is getting a certain weapon only available by accepting the Volcano Manor side quest. Go to the Volcano Manor on the west side of the Altos Plateau, work through the first 3 requests, and the 4th one will be a guy named Juno Hoslow, located on the mountaintop of the Giants. After a very annoying fight, you will be rewarded with his armor set and most importantly, Hoslow's Blood Petal Whip. It is always nice to have some extra layer of caution against these ladies, and this is why I often go and buy a lot of shrimps from Blackguard that can be located near the capital on this lake right here if you've already met him in Lyrna of the Lakes. Also, the Uplifting Aromatic from the Perfumer's Cookbook number 1 that can be found on the Perfumer's Ruins in the region of Altus is pretty handy. This will give both of you and the Mimic Tier some damage negation and boost the Mimic's attack. Now, before heading back to the Haligtree, be sure to upgrade your favorite bleed weapon, the Mimic Tier, and Hoslow's Blood Petal Whip as much as you can. rest on the side of grace before entering the fight. Apply any Ash of War you like on Hoslow's Blood Petal whip, and you will now notice that thanks to that black Whetblade we grabbed earlier, you can now select the Blood affinity, and this will reduce the weapon's damage output, but pump the blood loss build-up from 55 to 79 in this whip. Be sure to equip this whip and your bleed weapon of choice on the same hand and head into the boss fight. Now let's begin with phase number 1 of the fight for Malenia. Upon entering the fight, be sure to have the whip as your primary weapon. Summon the Mimic tier, and after he appears, do a quick switcheroo so you have your bleed weapon of choice equipped instead of the whip. I tried before with both having the whip and me having the whip only, but the best alternative was giving him the whip. Don't ask me why, but the Mimic tier makes this weapon work insanely good for him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the name of the game is to protect the Mimic tier, and the best way to do this is by entering into a fighting rhythm where you alternate hits against Malenia. You hit, he hits, you hit, he hits, and so on. 1, 2, 1, 2. What this 1-2 inertia with the Mimic tier is going to create is two things. Number 1, Malenia is going to get constantly interrupted by the amount of damage you're dealing, and most surely break its stance at least once per phase. And number 2, with that insane amount of blood loss build up between both weapons, yours and the Mimic's, she's going to be bleeding a lot quicker. That is what the Whetblade was for. It usually takes around a minute or less to get the first phase down, depending on Malenia's AI, how much she heals, how frequently can you get her into a corner, or even how quickly you stagger her. But I promise, you will be constantly getting to phase number 2. And remember, the more you protect your Mimic tier's health, the easier phase 2 will be. For phase number 2, you basically are going to do exactly the same, but things are going to be a lot faster. There are a couple of important details here. The first one, beware of the rot dealing attacks, especially the initial flower bomb dive and some of the other attacks where flowers sprout from the floor. These are easy to avoid, just stay away from those flowers, and while you avoid those, you can counterattack from the distance with any throwing items or spells. And point number 2, I do recommend you grant some additional protection for the Mimic tier and yourself. While the initial flower bomb dive attack is blooming, this is enough time to use those shrimp and perfume bottles we mentioned earlier in the video and even drink from your wondrous flask. But once that flower is open, don't get intimidated by the lack of clothes on Malenia. Stick to that 1-2 strategy we use in the first phase, and phase 2 will be over in no time. Keep going with that steady attack rhythm, take advantage of any stance break you make or bleed you inflict, and Malenia will meet defeat for the first time in her life in no time. Be sure to check out more Elden Ring videos that I will be uploading to this playlist right here as a progress for the game. But for now, I hope this was useful. Thank you for watching and keep enjoying the game.